Thank you for joining us for this year's ChefConf Online. While I only joined this amazing community just 6 months ago, the last 16 months have held so many changes, big and small, for the chef community, and this community has gotten so much better and stronger as a result. During our time today, we're going to talk about some of the things that the company has planned for this community, some of the things we love about our community, and we'll talk to some of the most active members of our community. And then we get to the good part, awarding this year's Awesome Chef Awards. First, though, I'd like to share a little bit about myself and where I come from. Just before coming to Chef, I ran the community team for a company called cPanel. I worked in the web hosting industry for nearly 15 years, and before that, I did a huge variety of jobs. I've done desktop support, both in person and at the end of an email or a phone. I installed a VoIP system in an old Sears department store building that had been converted into office space. I took over a specialty toy shop that was going out of business and managed it through its last Christmas season. I've worked at hotels, and in fact, my favorite job was working as a bellhop at the Holiday Inn on the south side of Lansing, Michigan, where I'm from. I worked at a bagel shop. I worked at a coffee shop. I worked at a men's clothing store. I've worked at so many random places, but I think that these places are many of the same places that y'all have worked. And for me, the things I've loved about these jobs is the people. Working with communities of people is fascinating, and I find it so rewarding. Before we get much further, though, I want to take a minute to define what I mean when I say community. It's one of those nebulous words that everyone thinks they understand, but can mean so many different things to so many individual people. When you're using a word like community in the open source world, for some folks it means developers that are committing code to the core. For some folks it means people who are active in chat or a forum like Slack or on Discourse. For some folks it means that they are the consumers of the software. For me, community involves all of those people and many more. It's the people who interact with us on Twitter because they think we're some kind of chef who cooks elaborate meals for their people. It's the people who used to be incredibly involved in Chef, but backed away because they stopped using it Chef at work for any reason, and they can't justify the commitment outside of work. In my opinion, Chef's community includes anyone who has, will, or wants to interact with our software or our company in any way. And that's a pretty massive community. Even with its size, though, I'm blown away by this community. When I joined Chef just 6 months ago, I was excited to join a community that was so vast and with so many people from so many companies that lived all over the world. I was excited by the potential impact I could have in bringing that community together and bringing more folks into the fold. I saw so much hope and so much that was encouraging. Today, though, I am most excited to help create and maintain a safe space for everyone that works in DevOps or DevSecOps, or whatever the kids are calling it these days. We're all weathering our own struggles on a daily basis. And the last thing that anyone needs to encounter is hostility when you come to a community for help. You should be able to ask questions of any skill level without fear of being attacked. You should be able to go from a complete beginner to being able to give back and still enjoy the people you interact with on a regular basis. You should be able to give back in whatever way you want to or can without being belittled or berated. The safe space we're building is a huge part of why Chef's community continues growing. We're adding new users and customers every single day, and it's comforting and humbling to watch those folks be welcomed instantaneously into the digital chef world. This year, Chef has made some internal goals that have a lot to do with community. I want to take a moment to share them with y'all. Our number one goal for both inside and outside Chef is to care. Care about the well-being of our people, our customers, and our community. The next two goals are the sort of things that happen accidentally when your primary driver is care. When you care, you will build connections automatically. When you care, you're present more often. The last goal on the list, leading with heart, allows us to always make decisions that care, with that care at the forefront of our minds. And those are the things that have led to us making decisions about what we want to be doing for our community in the next year. Without in-person events, we're left with only digital connections. So you'll see us reaching out more frequently in digital ways. You've already seen more online meetups and webinars from us, and new ways to interact with us, like our weekly Twitch live stream. We want to continue to make it as easy as possible to interact with you, however you can, so we can help you with the amazing things you're building and supporting. You'll also see more from our developer relations team, especially in the ways that Chef supports our community. Last year, we launched a new website called launched a new website at community.chef.io with the goal of being a single point of entry for our entire community. It shows you both how to reach other folks in the community, how to contribute to other projects, and then also shows you how to get started using our software quickly and easily. Before the end of the year, you'll see us expand the content there and to include more information around Habitat and Inspect, as well as all of the other things we're working on. We're working to teach the community in a more scalable way too. Today, well, yesterday technically, Learn Chef, our completely free self-paced online learning platform, has been relaunched, and with the new platform, our team will find it much easier to create new content and update existing content. We're also finding new ways to help people share their stories, like our quarterly Women in Trek panel. We want the Chef community to continue growing to be a community of inclusion, transparency, and trust for all humans. But now that you've listened to my take on some of the state of our community, I'd like to chat with some of the members of our community. These folks were some of the first folks to welcome me when I joined, and I'm stoked to chat with them today. We'll have them give a brief introduction of themselves, and then it'll be time for conversations, followed by some questions from the audience. If you have questions for the crew as we're going through, please drop them in the Avia chat if you can, or over in Slack in the ChefConf room. And that'll make sure that we see them. John, if you're there, why don't you kick us off with an introduction?
Hello, Benny. Glad to be here. So I'm John Roesler. I'm one of the current board members for the Sous Chef community organization, which we'll talk more about. There's others here from that group. Just, I guess, quick background on me and Chef. I got into Chef because I'm very passionate about automating everything, and I have found a great home here in that the community has been extremely welcoming, and I've found nothing but good vibes here. It's been a great learning platform, and yeah, happy to continue contributing.
Awesome. Who wants to go next? Should we make Jason go next?
Okay. So I'm Jason Field. I'm one of the other board members of Sous Chef, and I'm also a DevOps team lead at Calistone. So I got into Chef a couple years ago, started reaching out to the community during some upgrade work, and the next thing I know, I've been writing some cookbooks and working with the community and just sort of stuck around, really. I know that we'll chat more about that.
Awesome. Who wants to go next? Lance?
Yeah, sure. I'll go next. My name is Lance Albertson. I'm currently the director of the Open Source Lab at Oregon State University. We provide a lot of infrastructure for open source projects from around the world, and we also mentor a lot of students. And my venture in Chef started in, I think it was maybe 2013, 2011, I don't remember which. It was at our transformation where we had been using CF Engine 2 for many, many years, and we were finally wanting to move away. And we have been dabbling between different options at the time, and we settled on Chef, and I really enjoyed the community. And so I've been teaching our students to use Chef ever since then. And more recently, I've been involved in the Sync community and making that happen and trying to help make the infrastructure work, since we use Chef quite a bit internally. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Let's see, is Marc there? I don't know if we have Marc yet. We do.
Marc is here.
Marc is here.
Hi, I'm Marc Chamberland. Well, thank you. Happy to be here first. I'm Marc Chamberland. I'm a consultant with the National Bank of Canada. I work mostly doing mentoring and evangelizing for DevOps practices. I'm also a founding member of the Sync project, and I started with the chef community only a few years back. I want to say maybe 2.5, but I found the community to be very welcoming, and I was getting a lot of positive value for my work through this community. So I stuck around and I found a way to contribute.
That's awesome. Mandy, why don't you tell us who you are for the few folks that don't know?
For the few folks that don't know, I am Mandy Walls. I am currently a DevRel at Chef. I have been here 8.5 years, doing various things between evangelism, professional services, and now DevRel.
Awesome. Cool. Love it. Beautiful. I think we decided we were going to start with Jason. Is that right? Do you want to tell us? Actually, no, I think it's John. We were talking about, I think, chef cookbook structures and the things that were going on in the last year about that. Do you want to talk a bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I can start, and my compatriot Jason will undoubtedly jump in here as I leave things to be desired. Yeah, over the last year, if you've been following the sous chef cookbook releases, you'll probably may have seen a lot of these patterns already and see them coming out across all of our cookbooks. I'll just kind of start to hit on a couple of them and may spark some discussion here amongst us. The first kind of thing to note is we have been moving away from recipes within the cookbooks themselves. So the sous chef cookbooks are moving to custom resources. That gives us the ability to make them, more reusable, composable, in different combinations that we maybe didn't even think about originally. Trying to build them in a simplistic way first. So designing the API in a simplistic, user-friendly way so that under the hood, if there's complication, it's in the logic within the cookbook and not exposed to the user, not having to set a custom resource with 8,000 properties, those types of things. And then, moving towards unit testing all of those custom resources because we can, and it's fast. Jason, anything you want to add on that one before I kind of hop to the next?
Yeah, so I think the key thing with those custom resources is it's the reading of them, the internal code, is a lot easier than the old LWRPs or HWRPs because you have to have a lot more Ruby knowledge to actually understand those. And just the ability to reuse that same code base all over the place. So Apache is a good example. You have a site in Apache. Well, you might have 5 sites, and now you don't have to work out some weird way to call the recipe and provide it the right node attributes to call it 5 times. You can call that same resource 5 times. It reads easier. And I think that people consuming the cookbooks will be able to read the code. And it's that whole thing of you don't need to be a programmer to use Chef.
Yeah, and those are the goals we've set out for. So obviously, come and give us feedback if our cookbooks aren't meeting those goals. The next thing that's been a pattern hand in hand with that is moving a lot of the logic into libraries within the cookbook. So the resources are then calling libraries. Again, gives us another layer to provide unit testing and comfort over those libraries, which are then reusable across all of the resources. Again, not doing the same thing twice kind of follows along with all of our automation patterns to make things repeatable and reusable. Mm-hmm. A pattern that we have in a few cookbooks that I might touch on here, and we've sort of modified it. It's been implemented different ways, is what we're calling others have coined this term first, but the accumulator pattern. You'll see in the HA Proxy Cookbook, Grafana, others, this pattern of, various resources writing out to, the overall node state with information that will eventually be written to a configuration file. One of the, enhancements that we've seen that Jason implemented in the Grafana Cookbook was designing a way for that to be, safe in case various resources were to fail. Right now, I know that in the HA Proxy Cookbook, if it fails in a weird position, it's possible that you're going to get not a complete config file out at the end due to how the pattern is dependent on other pieces. Jason, anything I guess you want to talk about there on kind of the logic steps you took in Grafana or the value we've provided there?
Yeah, so the Grafana Cookbook, the changes there to the Accumulator Pattern, which was, I believe, Aaron Kalin who first sort of started to talk about it in Chef years ago. It was mainly around the fact that in Grafana, we have resources that need the API to be online, and we have resources that we use in the Accumulator Pattern to build that config file. So for those who aren't aware of why you'd use the Accumulator Pattern, it's mainly you have a single config file on disk, and you don't really want one resource to configure the world, because you'll end up with 8,000 properties. So you can reuse the same resources a lot of times. HA proxy is quite a good example of this. You'll have multiple front ends, multiple back ends, but at the end of the day, it's all going to one file. So you're building up that state and then you're writing it at the end in the standard pattern. For Grafana, the problem we had there was if you wrote it at the end, that's great, but you can't call the API resources, and the first time you converge, it blows up, and it's just not a great user experience. So we came up with this sort of resource called a config writer, which was mainly because I didn't know what to name it. And that resource will write that config to disk at that point in time, so you can call the API style resources afterwards, knowing that the Grafana server will be operational and will be usable and respond to those calls as expected. It's one of those patterns that ideally you'd never need to use, but because of how some software is provided with only a single config file, you have to use these sorts of technologies to work around it and implementations.
Yeah, I think the last, kind of one of the last things to highlight that I think will transition into what I know Benny wants to ask Jason about is around, you know, where we've been using Dokken for our testing of cookbooks. If you're not familiar with Dokken, it's a driver that you're able to test or run cookbooks with on Docker instead of virtual machines. So that has greatly increased the speed at which we can run tests for cookbooks. And in tandem with that, our move of the sous chef CI pipeline to GitHub Actions has allowed us to run far more tests in parallel. And just as an example, we've had cookbooks go from taking an hour to run tests on a pull request now to sub 10 minutes. So it's been a huge win for us. And then, kind of implementing that across all of the cookbooks, which is a problem when you're trying to manage many GitHub repos, many cookbooks that have similar attributes, not in the sense of node attributes, but similar attributes to the repos, to the cookbooks across an entire GitHub organization is a problem that we've been struggling to solve. And I think we've made some really great strides in that this year.
Yeah, that's a great setup for that question for Jason. Because for anybody that doesn't know, Jason actually wrote a blog post about the automation that the sous chefs have been working on, and mostly Jason, or a lot of it has been Jason driving it, because there are a lot of cookbooks to manage. And Jason, I'd love to have you talk about the automation and kind of the decisions that you made around the automation and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so I think I'll start off with the GitHub Actions decisions.
Yeah.
So we decided to migrate to GitHub Actions mainly for speed. So Circle CI, which we were using before, which is a fantastic product, the only problem we had in open source was the number of workers it would give you in parallel at once. So I think we had 2 or 3 workers we could use at the same time. Use more would have cost us more money. And as an open source community, we don't have unlimited funds. So when GitHub Actions launched, they announced that they were going to give 20 workers to run in parallel for any open source project. So I set up a new GitHub org called Actions Hub and went and used that to create loads of actions around installing Chef, running Docker, and running Kitchen. So we migrated over to that, which was great. That sort of makes everything run smoother, and it shortens those feedback loops, which to me are one of the key things with contributing. You want to actually know that your changes worked and not remember to come back and look at that pull request in 3 hours. A bit like you want your changes to be merged in within a week or 2 and not 6 months. it's that give and take. We're asking the community to contribute to our cookbooks. We need to, as part of the community, be responsible and feed back to them within a reasonable time, but knowing that we're not actually paid for this. So that's sort of our time when we can and giving it up. Mm-hmm. But once we got that in place, we started to realize that the cookbooks were the same in structure, but different, where different people had decided what the default should be. What I took that on with an approach is that we should have had a standard set of files that are always the same across every cookbook. So I started to play around with some PowerShell on Linux, because why not? Microsoft is open source and I'm predominantly Windows in work, so that's just skills that I'm faster at iterating in. And wrote a nice little PowerShell script that will go and read all the standard files out of our repo management and then push those files down into all of our cookbooks. After doing that, I realized the other pain that we have is when we're developing, we never run cookstyle across all of our repositories. And as we heard earlier today, cookstyle really makes the upgrade easier. And if we're not doing it for the community cookbooks, you could be doing it in work and then you end up with a fork of the community because they didn't run cookstyle, or it's just not a nice experience. So I ended up writing another bot which will go out, clone all the repositories and just run cookstyle on it every single night with the latest cookstyle gem that is available. So before you get shipped in Chef Workstation, we want to be that far cutting ahead that we've got these changes shipped. So we then have all of these things issue as a PR and then we review them. The final real piece to this puzzle, which I believe Dan Webb is still working on, is that automated release pipeline. It's something we've been working on a lot this year and we're hoping to have wrapped up in the not too distant future, whereby merges will automatically release these things to the supermarket. I guess a good way of looking at it is, since we've had this bot in place, which has only been a couple months, I believe it's done around 500 pull requests to the sous chefs org alone. It also runs on the Chef Cookbooks org for the cookstyle rules. And there was a new cookstyle release last night, my time. I'm in the UK. And by about midday, my time today, that had been run against the entire Chef Cookbooks, the entire sous chefs, and shipped for everything. So these latest changes that you need to really be on the cutting edge and make sure that your cookbooks are fully up to date. As a community, we're trying to ship these faster. And by using these bots, it doesn't rely on somebody having to clone out all the repositories, do things manually, which, let's be honest, nobody really wants to do. You want to be writing features or fixing interesting issues, not run automated tool on 1,000 repositories. That's boring.
Yeah, right. How many man hours do you think you've actually saved? Like, assuming that somebody was actually going to go out and do all that work.
Realistically, I would probably say 500 man hours. It's all those little times of decisions, cookbooks, cookstyle, knowing that you've got to run it, and the standard files. We're moving that conversation now away from what I decide I think the standard file should be in Grafana when I code it, and where John decides they should be in HOProxy when he codes it, because that's the last time somebody touched it. It's having a central place and moving that discussion to what they should be. So one of the good things we rolled out this year was editor config. So if you're using VS Code, you have to install an extension, but most other IDEs just support it. And it says, oh, what should the look and feel of this be? When are we using space? Are we using tabs, indentation level? Is it 2 spaces, 4 spaces? All these little things. And it just means that there's more consistency. When people are issuing those PRs now, they're already in the formats we expect them to be in. So there's no, or could you just?
That's really cool.
And jump in for just a second. I feel like I should point out that all the things that Jason is explaining right now is precisely the reason why the first step on my decision-making tree for finding a cookbook is it sous chef? If so, skip to go.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I accept that not every sous chef's community cookbook is amazing. Some of them are still in the rewrite and needing rewrite. But as a community, we've rewritten this year, and specifically, I think Dan Webb rewrote Java recently. We've also got things like HA Proxy, Grafana, Line, Tomcat. If you look through your repositories in work, you'll probably find out cookbooks somewhere in there, probably hidden away 5 dependencies down where they normally live. But we just aim to produce really good, high quality cookbooks that you can consume. And ideally, if you find features that are missing, or you think of other things that it should do, please just issue a PR to us. The worst thing we'll do is just say, oh, tweak that a little bit, or can we just discuss this a bit more?
And I'll just add on to that. If somebody has questions about what should be included or what might be useful and they're not sure before you want to go through the work, if you wanted to ask, there's also the Sous Chef's chat room in our community Slack where you can find all of these glorious people. It's true. Cool. So that all sounds really awesome, obviously. So I kind of want to talk a little bit about the changes that have happened in the last year in the community, because there have been some pretty major shifts. I haven't seen, I'll just remind everybody again, if you have questions, either drop them in Evia chat or in community Slack so that I can see them in the ChefConf 2020 room. I feel like most of the shifts in the community started last year around the licensing change. And I would love to hear from, honestly, all of you, but I'm going to focus in on Marc because of the conversation we were having last week, 2 weeks ago, around the state of the community and what you think, the changes that have come in the last year and what you think have made it better and where you think we're struggling and what you think we can do to make it better.
So folks who were there last year around this change around the licensing announcement will remember that there was let's call it a very dark period of negativity. For a moment there, the community Slack was filled with people who were understandably angry. I mean, one day they had free software and the next they didn't. From my perspective, though, yeah, sure, we'd lost some free software today, but there was a promise of more free software in the future. We suddenly had access to the automated code base. So I used that fact to attempt to turn the narrative around a little bit. Didn't work that great. I get points for effort. But then along came Bastien Jove, which most of you might know as Tentebai. And together we concluded that the best approach was to work with Chef to get this open source code packaged as a free binary. And we immediately had the support of Chef Software. We had people like Tim Smith and Lamont Granquist who were already counseling us on the best approach to not only create a community distribution, create a free distribution of Chef Software, but also to make sure that this process was easier for other potential redistributors. Chef had made it so that anyone could distribute it, but the initial, the first thing that we noticed was that it was a very hard thing to do. I mean, the company is called Chef. The trademark policy says that Chef is a word that needs to be cleaned out of all the user-facing outputs in order to be compliant. And well, you know, the word's everywhere in the code base. It's in every output, every error message. It was literally all over the place. So myself, Bastien, and Artem Sidorenko, which I previously worked with on the DevSec project over the course of a few PR. Artem, thank you very much for showing me how to Git. So we got together and we started working on what would eventually become the Sync project. We didn't have a name at that time. We actually had a little contest on the mailing list for the name. But yeah, that's how we started the project. And I think that helped a lot in restoring faith in the community. For a moment there was a little bit of a loss of faith. Some people had let these negative ideas that were flowing around get to them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was a little burst of positivity there, that there was a group of people who had committed to not only building a community distribution, but making it easier for other people too, should we fail or should our interest for it wane or anything such, somebody else would be able to pick up the torch and our work would not have been wasted. That's a little bit the story. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, for sure. Do you think, I'm going to lead you a little bit to a statement that you said last week. Okay. The thing that I think most folks were, especially the folks that were kind of buying into that negative approach to it, they were concerned that it would kind of weaken the community, or believed that it would weaken the community as a whole to have this, like, kind of to have the free version of Chef taken away. Do you think that the community is stronger, or do you think it is, did it have a weakened time? How do you feel? And honestly, anybody can answer this question. I'm asking Marc because he's talking right now.
From my perspective, the community is now much stronger for it, as any community that goes through any ordeal together is. If you come out on the other side, then your relationships are forged. And what is community if not relationship between humans? I think it is much, much stronger for it, as we went through that ordeal together. Mm-hmm. It was not a single community hero in some corner that fixed everything.
Yep, for sure. And I'm going to say, even since November, the thing that I've noticed is that the folks that are kind of active, like y'all, are a little bit more, I'm not going to say committed because that's not fair, but invested maybe, because I feel like folks are, when you get to be involved, especially when there's a community distribution and you get to be involved in that, you get to own it a little bit more. It's not just committing to somebody else's code. You're committing to this thing that you truly believe in.
Indeed so, but I don't want to take away anything from previous contributors too. Some people for sure left around that time that had put a lot of work in there, that had, there was a lot of commits in the repos and such. And I don't mean that. I mean that there was a lull of activity, right? Right after the announcement last year. And the folks that I've seen since that lull are definitely committed. And that's kind of fun. Absolutely. We have a strong core over in both the Sync project and the community as a whole. And I think that core will carry the community forward through whatever is the next ordeal, if there is one.
Yep, agreed. So Lance, the question I had for you, it seems like, I don't remember exactly when you got involved, so don't quote me, but it seems like one of the things that you've gotten your hands in this year is the build pipeline.
Yep.
And I can't remember if sous chefs was before or after that.
It was after that, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. So tell us a little bit about your journey as part of the chef community.
Well, I've kind of been a part of the chef community, but I haven't been active on the code side for a long time. I've been busy doing other things. And when the licensing change came, I was kind of at a crossroads. It was like, I was really happy with the technology and the community. And I really we didn't have the funding really per se to probably properly pay for it. We probably could have gotten a free license and went with that, but it really didn't feel like the right way to go. And I saw that we really needed to find a way to kind of come together, and I wanted to contribute. And that's part of what we do with the Open Source Lab, is, helping other communities. And it was a great experience for me and my students to kind of get involved too. It's mostly been me, but hopefully I'll get my students more involved. But I've always been interested in build pipelines. I do that all the time. And I also have access to other architectures. And so I got in probably I think it was around when ChefConf this time last year is when I decided to finally get in on it. I met Marc in person at the ChefConf last year, and that really helped me kind of solidify, like, okay, everything's fine. This community is still great. There's been shifting around with some folks, but it's still awesome. And so I wanted to help them on the infrastructure side since they were kind of they were needing a little help with that. And so I kind of lended some hand on doing that quite a bit. And I also had a personal need that I need to be able to run this myself eventually in our lab. And so it's been great kind of doing that.
Yeah, that's awesome. What role do you think the community distributions kind of play in the chef ecosystem as a whole? Because I'm not sure if I don't know if I made clear early on. From my perspective, the sync folks are still part of the chef community. Like, it's whether it's us distributing the software or you guys distributing the software, it's still the same software. We're all together, right? It's not a separation. But I feel like the sync project and the sync distribution hold a specific place, or a strong place in the community. Where do you think it sits in the greater ecosystem?
It was actually interesting. I was trying to explain sync to my wife last night, and it really got me thinking about the kind of niche that we fill, and it's really that niche of the people that they want to have access to chefs. They want to be able to use it. Maybe they don't have the financial means to properly pay for chefs with a license and do it that way, but they want to be able to use it, or they have a specific need that doesn't quite fit. I think for us, it's just trying to make sure that the community as a whole is really healthy. When I've been talking with other people about this change, like, oh, that's horrible, now you have to pay for it. It's like, well, I'm a part of this project where we're trying to redistribute it, kind of like the similar model that CentOS and Red Hat kind of have had over the years, where we're rebuilding it. It's essentially the same thing, it's just branded differently. And we fit that niche of, I don't need to pay for support, but I just want to at least have something and make it work. I don't want us to compete with Chef at all. I want us to, we've done a lot of contributions upstream and fixing actually some things that we've run into. And anything we do will help not only the Chef community, but the sync community that uses our stuff as well. And so I think that's kind of a major part of that.
Yeah, and watching the conversation in Slack, I feel like you both mentioned Tim and Lamont. The back and forth has been really cool to watch. Tim and Lamont say, oh yeah, we can adjust that to make that easier, so let's do that, and we can do that. Like, it's been super collaborative, and that's fun to watch.
Yeah, that's been.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just gonna say they have both been awesome, and they're amazing, and they're fun to work with. I've been trying to stay on, with their weekly meetings they have and kind of understand what's upcoming, and then if I have any issues, kind of dive in there. And I have the experience of diving into the other architectures. We're currently trying to make some ARM64 builds of sync, so there's some fun things going on with that, and yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah, that'll be a good time. That's a good little tiny segue into if you are interested in watching what's coming out on a regular basis and what the teams are working on. We have a weekly text-based meeting that happens at what is it? It's 9 a.m. Pacific, I think. It's noon for me in Eastern time. So I have to remember. I think it's 9 a.m. Pacific. And then I actually essentially take all of the notes from that meeting and put them on Discourse so that they're kept around forever, so that we have those the historical context. But if you're ever curious about what's going on, you can join us there. It's in the community meetings room on Slack. And right after that always is the sous chefs meeting. Is that going to change, or are we still going to do it on Thursdays?
We're still going to do it on Thursdays, but we will be starting to stream on Twitch soon as well, as part of that. Did I not tell you about that?
No, I knew about it. I'm excited. It's a very exciting thing. Non-text-based communication.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, is there anything anybody else wanted to talk about?
Just that we've put up the votes now for the sous chefs board for the next year.
They can find that in sous chefs on Slack, right?
Sous Chef community meetings and announcements. I sent it everywhere.
And it may be on Twitter at some point.
Yeah, maybe on Twitter at some point. If Dan is watching, we need the Twitter details. Give us the login credentials. All right, cool. Well, this is about perfect timing, I think. I haven't seen any questions come in from the crew. It's possible that I'm missing stuff, but I don't see anything. Let me refresh the page and double check. Oh, John Gitlin pointed out that there was also some confusion around when we were talking about the licensing chain, pointed out that there might have been confusion around the Apache 2 license because folks didn't necessarily know what that meant. So that's a really good point. Once that got clarified, I think folks felt differently. And he also pointed out that support from the chef staff that has been given to Sync has been a major driver in his wanting to contribute to Sync. So that's kind of cool. It's nice to see. Yeah, and I don't see any questions. So maybe we will move into my favorite part of today. The awards. Give me a second. So thanks all of y'all for having so much fun in our little chats. We, let's see. Oh, Mandy's going to take this part over, I think. Yeah. I got a paragraph to read, and then it's Mandy. For those that don't know, the Awesome Chef Awards are an annual set of awards that we give out to awesome members of our community. These awards are specifically for people who have shown remarkable devotion to our community, have either been active in development of chef software or working with folks who ask questions or write documentation. Each year, we ask all of you out there, who is doing the most amazing stuff, who is helping you the most on Slack or GitHub, who's making contributions that set us all up for greater success with Chef Inspect, Chef Habitat, or anything else that we're working on. The winners are nominated by the community, and it's always an honor to be able to hand out these awards. Mandy.
Yeah, so I get the good part here. This year, folks nominated some pretty amazing people, and we have 3 winners, 2 of whom are here with us today. So congratulations to Vasquez Thiov. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that one. Marc and Lance. We don't have Tensabai with us today, but if you ever ask a question on our community Slack, if he's not on holiday, and sometimes even if he is, chances are that you'll hear from him. He basically runs the house on the community Slack in general, especially during European business hours. He's a remarkably helpful and patient human, and is a stunning example of what new folks can expect from our community. So thank you to Tensabai. Marc has also been an incredible, spent an incredible amount of time helping people on community Slack. I'm pretty much sure he's on all the time. Friendly and helpful, and his knowledge of the chef ecosystem is vast, and we absolutely miss him when he is not around. And finally, Lance crushes it in the community. He has greatly improved our OpenStack experience. He's instrumental with the sous chefs and a driving force behind Sync. He's also constantly around to make sure others are succeeding with Chef, from those in the community Slack to his students at OSU OSL. So thank you to these 3 folks this year for making this community so much worth participating in.
I think Benny.
Yep, I'm muted. So speaking of folks that we like to have around, I have one more award to give out, and I'm excited most about this one, I think. This year, I have the honor of awarding Mandy Walls with the Lifetime Community Chef Award. Yeah! Mandy, like she said earlier, has worked for Chef for 8.5 years, and in that time has traveled to 29 different countries for Chef, logging more than 1 million hours in the year. She's had 5 different positions inside Chef and lived in 2 different countries. But no matter where she was, she always fought hard for the community. She was the first person to offer help in any situation and has helped us, so many of us in the chef community, to be better at what we do and better humans. She's an absolute delight to work beside, and her unwavering commitment to doing good inspires me on the daily. On behalf of the chef community, we thank you, Mandy. She didn't know this was coming, but I'm going to ask her to say a few words. Mandy, not to put you on the spot, but totally to put you on the spot. Do you have anything you'd like to say?
Well, thank you, I guess. I hope over the past 8.5 years, I have helped you do stuff with Chef. It's been, like you said, a lot of miles, a lot of crazy places, a lot of corporate cafeterias, in interesting places as well. We have a lot of really great customers, a lot of amazing users. The folks have been great everywhere I've been. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else want to say anything to you, Mandy? Not to put you all on the spot, but totally to put you on the spot.
Keep being awesome.
Love Mandy. Cheers, you've helped out a lot.
Awesome job. You certainly deserve it.
Yay! All right then. Thanks for joining us today for this great conversation. Let's keep the conversation going over in Community Slack. If you're not sure how to find it, you can find a link on community.chef.io. Make sure you check out all of the amazing talks that are available on the site. Tomorrow, we also have another live conversation at 2 p.m. where we'll talk to women. We'll talk about the ways that women succeed in an industry that doesn't always offer much support for women. So tune in for that. I also want to mention, for anyone that hadn't seen it, tonight's chef concert has been moved to tomorrow night. We're happy to help our artists participate in Blackout Tuesday in support of Black Lives Matter. Unfortunately, that means we're bumping trivia night to some other night in the future, but it'll still be awesome, I promise. Thanks again to you all for coming and for participating, especially to Jason for being here at the middle of the night. Thank you for being so awesome in the community, and for, I'm gonna come up with a different word that's not awesome, but not right now. Thank you for coming. Have a great time.
Thanks for having us. Have a good day.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye. Cheers.
Bye.